Why are motorhome, campervan, caravan dealers and manufacturers going bust? What is going on with the market? And why are campervans currently so much more expensive? Plus the minefield of the used campervan market. Are campervans not selling anymore? What has happened so far? Well, unfortunately, there have actually been several liquidations and companies going into administration over the last 12 months. This has been leisure industry dealers and also campervan converters. There's also talk, stroke rumours within the industry that there's going to be some others, including some big names that could be at risk. The most recent one to go was a big one who actually had their own brand of transporter campervans. There are a number of different aspects to this problem with different sales models, and we're going to go through some of that today. Let's start by discussing the dealer, the retailer selling somebody else's produced vans. Now these are the people which we buy from as consumers, but for them to have stock of vehicles for us to buy, they need to order them in advance from the manufacturer. So generally they need to commit to this well in advance of that period before the vans are actually delivered, meaning they need to predict the number of vans which they're going to want for the new season, guessing how many people are going to be buying their vans. But actually they might be tied into taking a certain number of vehicles each year, a minimum amount which they have to actually take. Choose too few and they could have an empty showroom after some good sales, or choose too many and they could be left with more stock than they can sell. If that stock hangs around for too long without being sold, the new season range could be arriving just around the corner, making those older models much less desirable. What compounds this problem is the credit line the dealers have to finance these vehicles. It's going to be costly after a set number of months with that interest accruing. They want that credit line cleared by obviously selling the vehicles. This leads to dealers wanting to sell the vehicles as soon as possible within that window of time before they start accruing that interest. So to ensure that this is achieved, they will often discount prior to the new models being announced. And if they have a lot of stock left, then they might push harder to sell. And this is by providing significant discounts, reducing the profit, and sometimes to the point that they're not actually making anything at all, or possibly even a loss, which seems completely crazy. But the longer they have the old vehicle, the more it costs them with interest charges. And if you multiply this by having lots of stock that doesn't sell, then you can see this potential serious problem just escalating the losses. So why would a dealer order too many or not sell enough? Well, the market is currently distressed. With COVID and the following years, there was this staycation boom and people couldn't travel overseas for a period of time, so they chose to holiday in the UK. And we've got some beautiful places here in the UK, and more people wanted to explore it. People started buying into the leisure industry that hadn't before. The demand for these vehicles was really high, although supply was actually quite limited because the production slowed as the factories had been closed due to COVID. And dealers were selling all the stock they had, and they were desperately trying to find more stock to sell because they knew they could sell it, but it just wasn't there. But then as production came back and vehicles were a lot easier to obtain, salespeople were hitting record numbers. Seemingly everybody wanted to be part of van life, whether that be camping, caravanning, motorhome and the campervan lifestyle. A real busy time for dealers and manufacturers alike. They really enjoyed this period, not actually knowing that there was a big problem brewing. That Volkswagen Transporter campervan, 4-berth for the family, was just over £40,000 in 2019, brand new. However, by 2021, this saw it rise to £49,999 for the same model, and more about that soon because it's gone up again. A Swift Basecamp entry-level caravan cost £16,500 in 2019, yet in 2021 that rose to just over £19,000. I will come back to today's prices shortly, as it shows that these prices just went up. The reason for this increase is related to why demand has dropped, the cost of living crisis. From the beginning of the chain, we've got the manufacturer. They build the vehicles for the dealer to buy. But even before the manufacturer, they need materials. So the manufacturer isn't really the start of the chain. There's people before that. The raw materials had increased in price. You may have heard about timber and plastic and glass and other different metals being at a real premium. That's the first increase. The factory in which the manufacturer has increased costs as the gas and electricity prices rose significantly. The labour cost had also increased because of the staff wages. Transportation rose because of the fuel prices and the staff as well. Diesel in September 2019 was about £1.30, yet during 2022 it actually rose to £1.90, pushing £2 a litre. Those increases alone significantly increased those production costs. And it doesn't just stop there though, because the dealer had also got the increased property running costs, staff and the transportation. Just because these dealers were selling more stock, it didn't necessarily equate to more profit due to these cost increases. Now let's look at the buyers and what happened there. Initially some people, not all, they had money to spend because they hadn't been spending anything due to COVID. So they decided that they would enter this amazing lifestyle which we've got and buy a leisure vehicle. There were lots of first-time buyers completely reliant on the honesty of salespeople that were trying to sell them the vehicle to guide them through to make the right choices. However, as the demand grew, so did the range of supply. New dealers, new campervan converters started to enter the market. Let me just say that in itself, this is not a problem. Opportunities were presented to quite a lot of these people at the time. Perhaps they'd always dreamed about running their own business, their own campervan conversion business, and now it could be achieved. As established converters saw that there was a great demand and they couldn't cope, and the new buyers didn't want to wait months and months and months for the new van. They wanted one as soon as they could. These new converters helped out with this demand. This though did affect things, as the increased competition led to the converters who were competing on price rather than the quality of the product, and they looked to cut the costs further to increase those profit margins. I've done several videos in the past about poor conversions, including this one here, which the poor buyer really did buy a shocking, dangerous and a poorly built quality van. I'm going to link to it at the end so you can have a look at that. So with the new converters, the range of campervans available was vast. A wide range, probably wider than we've ever seen before. Lots of different designs, finishes, styles, materials, alternative electrical systems, different ways to heat the van, types of beds, pop tops and much more. This is fantastic, but it does lead to some difficulties down the line. Let's just go back to the Caravan example. Trust me, it will make sense a little bit later on. You buy a 2019, a nice family caravan, the Swift Sprite Major 6TD. You went for the solar panel on the roof to charge the battery and also the motor mover so you could, it's a bit like a remote control to kind of move it around easy. Now this in 2019 started at 18,110, and then let's say you spent £2,500 on extras. So then a few years later we've got two potential scenarios. The first scenario, you decide that you want to upgrade this caravan to the latest model. Not necessarily up the range, just the exact same model, but the one with just a few different upgrades on it. However, the price of this new model for the same caravan, albeit slightly, obviously a few years ahead, is now 27.5 grand. And that's before your £2,500 extras. That is a hefty increase. That caravan with extras has just gone from just over 20 grand to £30,000. It's a big increase in just a short space of time. And then you've got the second scenario. You've decided that the caravan isn't actually your lifestyle choice anymore. You want to go abroad more. And this is where the real problem can happen. The second-hand values have dropped significantly. You was expecting a certain figure, which last year you might have got, but now you just can't. Additionally, dealers don't want your Part X because they've already got a lot of other vans which they can't currently sell. With the first example, they will most likely take your van in Part X, but the gap in price change will be big as the used van has plummeted in value. The increased production costs and materials have just caused everything to increase. Everything has gone up, but so has the tech. The vans do improve each year, so you are going to see a little bit of a benefit. Before we get onto the demographics of buyers and who is and isn't affected by this, let's just go back to the campervans. So in 2021, you could have bought an M1 registered motor caravan on the logbook, NCC, Volkswagen approved, passed all the required gas, electric, health and safety tests. It's got a rib bed, quality heating system, popped up roof with a sprung mattress, premium tyres, and delivery miles, and you are that first owner, for less than 50 grand, 49,999. However, instead, the camper van purchased was one which was significantly cheaper components, a panel van conversion, no testing certificates, a cheaper bed, a pop top with a wooden board for a bed. Yeah, it looked nicer, it had big alloy wheels, but it did have cheap tyres. And you're the second owner because it was already registered as a panel van before the converter converted it. But yet you paid £65,000 because it looked nicer. There is far more variation in a camper van due to the significantly higher numbers of manufacturers and converters. Now, when it comes to part Xing or selling, you've just entered a complete minefield. You haven't got that Swift Caravan with a few options, or that Volkswagen Golf R with the performance pack, or a motorhome with the optional battery upgrade. You've got a Volkswagen Transporter panel van with a completely different interior, a different roof and different bodywork. Even the NCC approved conversions, that once they've been approved, the build is unchanged, they have to build them all the same, or the California Ocean for that instance. It could have been significantly modified after the sale with upgraded wheels, body kits, etc. And these are all things which you don't get with motorhomes and caravans. And for this reason, pricing is a really, really complex matter for campervans. People are saying campervans aren't selling. They are seeing vans for sale for weeks, for months without actually selling. So has this leisure market completely crashed? Well, there's three types of van essentially here, and they're all slightly different. So let's remember we're currently in a cost of living crisis. Our gas, electric, water, petrol, diesel, rents, mortgages, food prices, the lists go on. They've all gone up. The money which we've got in our pockets is less. We have less to spend. But this does affect us differently. Now, I've tried collating the facts on demographics, but seemingly the figures do vary wherever you look. However, in general, so I've been told that the average age of a caravan owner is lower than it used to be. People of working age who at present are being squeezed by the cost of living crisis, meaning the choice to upgrade or buy a leisure vehicle is going to be a difficult one, especially with the increase in interest rates also. That market has really slowed. Forecourts are full of stock which they need to sell. There are definitely some good deals at the moment with the new models coming just around the corner. I've seen quite a few forecourts over this last few weeks. I can actually think of 3 specifically which I've been past, and they're all really busy. They've got a lot of vans, a lot of stock there to sell. This part of the market has slowed, hence a few dealers have already gone, and that talk of potentially some others not too far away. But onto the motorhome market, and we have a different type of buyer here. Generally, they are generally older, more money in the pockets, so they aren't feeling the financial strains as much of others. With the supply being much improved now and the European market returning, there's a good amount of stock availability, which means that the buyer's got lots of choice, lots of different options. They're able to shop around and buy the right motorhome that suits you from a wide range of vehicles, whilst knowing that the Swift Tracker which they're looking at, because of its good value, its equipment levels and design, is exactly that, and isn't something that could be completely different internals to the other Swift Tracker which they're currently looking at, like happens with a campervan, which I'm going to come on to. There are again great discounts available on motorhomes as we approach the newer models. But is this really any different to previous years? From conversations which I've had, motorhomes are selling. There is actually an upturn in people who are wanting the bigger vehicles. So does this mean that people aren't buying campervans anymore if they're going for the bigger vehicle? Well, the campervan buyer could be from a wide range of ages. The image of a campervan is appealing to much younger people than a motorhome, and a huge factor of this is the versatility of a campervan, something I've discussed many times before. Just because the price of a motorhome is the same as a campervan in certain scenarios, it doesn't mean it's a simple choice of, well, I'm going to go for the bigger van. There's far more to it than that. A campervan can be used as your daily driver. You can go to the shops, you can go to work, park in a multi-storey car park. Not something which is particularly easy if you've got a big, tall, wide motorhome. So instead of a motorhome being used as a vehicle for weekends only, a campervan is a good option for people to drive on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be just a leisure vehicle. But is this market crashing? We've seen one branded conversion disappear as the company went into liquidation. There are also other liquidated companies that have gone, including component manufacturer. There's also been rebrands, although not all rebrands are to change the name. Do some research on that and find out why they've rebranded. Could it be a phoenix from the flames, or they had a poor reputation so they needed a fresh start? Really do some good research on this. Find out who you're intending to buy from, that they're actually a good company. You will be spending a lot of money on this leisure vehicle, so make sure that you're giving your hard-earned cash to the right person. I've spoken to a few in the industry, and newer conversions, the brand new vans that are now very, very limited in availability, the remaining ones are selling extremely well for the right van. I know that some of the budget component stuff, the ones which are built cheaper, although the sale price doesn't really reflect it, they are hanging around because they're just not particularly selling. But these vans that are selling, they are selling at increased prices. This, as I mentioned earlier, due to the costs rising. The base van from Volkswagen, when the T6.1 was released, it had a list price of just over 26 grand for the base model. This, more recently, is increased by 10 grand to about 36.5 grand. That's the base vehicle. So if you wanted a better spec, the Highline with DSG, that's another 10 grand. So that brand new transporter campervan, which you could buy for just over 40 grand a few years ago, then 49 grand or 50 grand in 2022, is now high 50s. Made worse that not only have the base vans gone up, but so have the components which are inside them. The pop tops, the beds, the electrics, the heaters, the fridges, the hubs. Just an example here, Dometic products have been subject to some serious price increases due to the cost increases. The sinks, the hobs, the fridges that are often used in conversions, the prices have gone up. I've seen this across the range, but one specifically which I can remember off the top of my head is the beach trolley I have. Now I bought that 4 years ago for about 75 quid, and now it's £125. That's like a 65% increase. It's crazy. The amount that these have gone up by is just crazy. So that's why these vans are going up. The costs have increased. So back to what dealers are selling. They are selling the brand new transporter campervans for 60 to 70 grand. The more boutique converters like EcoWagon are selling their, let's say, big money vans with premium components priced as they are for a reason. They have a really good reputation and their place in the market. They are selling. Knight's Custom Conversions, really good quality company, and producing some of the higher end specification campervans. They are selling. Dirty Weekender, you've seen the incredible campervan which they made for that. They have producing those and selling them. They are unique, bespoke vans for people's needs, and they're brilliant, and they are selling them. It seems that if you've got good quality stock, then it will be sold. But this is where the other issue is. The market is flooded with low budget, made poverty spec base vans, cheap components, vinyl covered seats, rock and roll bed, piece of wood for a bed in the pop top, but with big wheels and bodywork that people have bought at a big profit margin to the converter, and they can't take the hit of the true value, so they're priced high and they struggle to sell. People can't sell their vans, and people see the same vans over and over again, leading them to believing that nothing is selling. I've seen it myself. There's a 2020 van and it kept popping up. It was about 58 grand I think to start with. It wasn't horrendous spec, but a brand new van of better spec was available at the same money. A van 4 years newer. This van kept appearing, and over time the price started to tumble. Last time I saw it, I think it was about 40 something, which would have still been more than a better spec brand new vehicle at the time. And that's the problem with the campervan market. Too many people have paid too much for low spec vans and want to try and recoup the money. The campervan market really could be divided into further categories, because you aren't comparing apples with apples a lot of the time. One advert to the next is completely different. Manufacturer built, like the California Ocean or the other approved conversions that are NCC, can be so far apart, so better than some of the poorer conversions or the DIY conversions. Yet when you're shopping around, there's no way to tell from price alone. When looking at the campervan market and how it's performing, it appears to be doing very well when a van is priced appropriately for its spec. But if it's not, then it may well hang around and give that illusion that things aren't selling. Part Xing a campervan can be really difficult. It's not always easy to determine the true value of a used panel van conversion because they're just not the same. You can't see if it's been insulated, you don't know if the wiring has been done safely, and without going into the workshop you can't see if the bed's been fitted correctly or the gas install is compliant. There's so many variables with a campervan, and with the big spike in sales during the last few years, with more and more on the road which inevitably come to the market, there is far more choice for a new buyer. So it seems at present sales are happening, people are buying new leisure vehicles. It's just that there's less people looking at them, and it means that these people can be more selective. With VW transporters, it's near impossible to track the market accurately, as there's so many different conversion types and specs of vehicles. So many sought after factors can inflate prices. Currently, 4Motion 204 horsepower vans are advertised at really strong money. As a 2 litre TSI conversions, the petrol variant 6 years old T6s are at more money than some of the newer diesel powered T6.1s. California Oceans have always had really strong residual values, and that hasn't changed. The right van advertised at the right money is selling. But what is the near future looking like? The T7 is coming soon, as is the new California on the multivan platform, and I can't see these being any cheaper than the outgoing models. They're just not going to be. The new Ford Transit Custom, which is the same platform as the VW Transporter, it starts at £38,800, which is more than the current T6.1. Plus the increase in component costs, these newer conversions are not going to be any cheaper. Are new vehicles becoming unaffordable for the masses? What do you think? The market hasn't crashed yet, but with these increasing prices, these future really is going to be interesting. Anyway, have a look at some other videos which I've done here. Thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you soon.